Welcome everybody to this our Saturday morning webinar regarding Section 12J investment. We have the privilege of hosting Wessel Venter from GrowSA South Africa here today, and they have a particular share class for impact empowerment ventures regarding the Section 12J fundraise. Wessel's share class is a diversified agricultural and farming share class, focusing on factory farming, which is a new term to me. As you know, I'm not a farmer. In fact, the only experience in farming I have is pulling out the weeds either at my current home where my wife is in charge, or otherwise growing up I was in charge of weeding the garden and weeding the vegetable patch. But we've been brought in to this season to fund a lot of SMEs, and many of them are in the agricultural sector. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Chris Hart, who's going to present this specific Section 12J opportunity that we have in South Africa. Chris, over to you, sir. Chris, are you ready?
I am ready, yes.
Okay.
Right. And yeah, I think it's, firstly from my side, thank you very much for joining. We sincerely hope that you have a interesting and informative session this morning. The topic is really how you can prosper through your taxes, which sounds absolutely crazy because it's one of the things that I think creates a short circuit in one's thinking, because your taxes are things that are taken away from you effectively by the tax authorities and in SARS for the purpose of advancing the government's interests for various things, schools, hospitals, roads, and things like that. But the Section 12J effectively allows us to get our taxes back and invest. So what I want to talk to you about today is the context that we find ourselves in, right? And then effectively how we can show that we can participate in a boom. And then I'm going to unpack the actual specific mechanism that we're going to use for the actual investing process, and then just reflect on the capital raising for business at the end. So if we could reflect that we have been really plunged into depression ahead of this virus thing at the beginning of last year, when the economy was put into lockdown. The economy was already in recession. We already had unemployment at 30%. And with this, the lockdown, unemployment being pushed to 43%, already at 30%, it's socially, it's destabilizing socially. And with unemployment above, heading to possibly even 50% on the expanded definition, it's actually quite possible that we see society unraveling. It's not something that's tenable and actually sustainable. And yet, if we go through what we are experiencing as a company, and that's just in this last year, in terms of just raising capital for business, Dave, next slide, and then if we can, and the next slide, yeah, is that we have started. We've started with what we call impact investing. And impact investing often focuses on the top of the pyramid. When you go to countries like in Europe, etc., and they're speaking about impact investing, it's often things about green energy or arts and culture, things like that, investing in those things. But to be Africa relevant, we have to actually tackle the base of the pyramids, create jobs, housing, food security, education, and also business ownership that we're trying to actually create at the same time. And it's actually quite important that our investment focuses on this. If we show the actual philosophy, that's next slide, what we're trying to achieve with this is that, next slide, what we're trying to achieve for investors is that we're not a charity. No, this previous slide. Yeah, what we're trying to achieve for investors is to try and deliver good returns. In other words, we're not trying to, we're not in the charity business here. We're in the investment business, and we're trying to achieve good returns, enhanced returns. We're not taking undue risks. In other words, enhanced risk control returns, but the investment that also creates change and hope, right? And that's because we're creating jobs, we're creating opportunities, and you'll see our byline, enriching lives through opportunity, is actually quite important, is that with opportunity, people have hope. And this is what we're trying to achieve. So in the context of high unemployment and even rising unemployment, we can actually, through our investments, actually turn that particular tide. And it's actually very important because we actually do have the power to do so with our taxes. If we look at the next slide, what we're trying to do as an investment house is to actually achieve, in terms of our investment processes, to achieve, firstly, commercial merit, right? That's the departure point for all investment, is that it must have some commercial merit. In other words, a chance of creating a return for investors. And next to that, we do look at the people. It's one of the things we emphasize, as you can appreciate. The best, great people can make a mediocre, project and idea work, whereas the best projects in the world can be actually, you could say, projects can fail because it doesn't have the right people involved. Then we also look at risk, not to avoid it, but in fact to almost embrace it. We want to actually know what the risks are, and we want to be able to manage and mitigate those risks. In other words, we use risks to actually help.
Chris, are you still there? Chris? All right.
Dave, are you going to take lead?
Yes, I think I'll take over. If Chris does come in, I'm sure he will carry on speaking. He is in Cape Town, ladies and gents, and that's why he's asking us in Joburg to move the slides on. So forgive us for that, but we are certainly going from Joburg. All right. So as Chris mentioned, the technology that we expect in our qualifying companies, in other words, those that are raising funds through this Section 12J opportunity, this technology needs to be appropriate. Africa isn't the UK or the USA, so we don't expect new Microsoft to be developed through our 12J clients or investments that we place our funds into, but certainly it must be appropriate for Africa. And Vessel in particular knows some of the qualifying companies that we've been working with for over a year now, and they're developing appropriate apps and technology for their particular industries, which for us is crucial. This is a slide that Chris feels so passionate about. These are some of the operating companies that we currently fund through our 12J. We started in 2019 with no assets under management and one project. And through Impact Empowerment Ventures, we've been able to raise 130 million rand nominal at the end of 2020 for the 6 projects or 6 qualifying companies that we funding with them together with the particular operating companies. I see Chris has joined us again now. And so, Chris, are you able to take over from this slide, sir? You are on mute, Chris.
I'm muted. All right. So I don't have to mind the connection
This is
dropped.
where I got to, Chris. I got to February 2020.
All right. So basically, in February 2020, from zero in August 2019, we basically raised effectively a nominal of 130 million rand for 6 projects, and we're now in the process of examining and raising money for almost 35 projects at this stage, and we've gone beyond 260 million, and hopefully by the end of this month we'll be actually looking at close to almost $1 billion in capital raise, and it's extremely successful. And this is why we're looking at this. We're going to describe a mechanism in a moment that actually reflects this in terms of how it's done. Our biggest obstacle is, in fact, people can't believe that you can do this, and yet we are doing it because it's with Section 12J. So if we look at the next slide, we're going to actually just outline. We're going to outline the actual Section 12J mechanism that we use. So let's just look at the next slide. Is that firstly, Section 12J is a tax incentive that is available to us, right? In other words, it's a mechanism. We don't have to apply for permission for it. It is there. If we do the investment, we claim the actual deduction. And basically what happens is that we are paying very high taxes. Our tax rates are very high. We are able to actually reclaim our taxes and apply it into an investment into 12J. And this is a permanent transfer of your taxes that you owe to SARS back to you, right? And it's not a trick, it's not special. We're going straight through the front door of SARS. I know everybody who does their taxes and they've got a retirement annuity, nobody has a problem in submitting the retirement annuity. They've been doing it for years and years and years. What happens, you submit your retirement annuity, your tax liability is reduced because the retirement annuity creates a deduction off your income for tax purposes. And Section 12J works exactly the same. All we do is that you apply your Section 12J share certificate. It then gets, the amount of that gets deducted off your tax. So what would happen is, let's say, for instance, you've got R1 million in income and you're going to be taxed 400,000 rand. Either as a provisional taxpayer or as a PAYE. If you're a PAYE payer, you get to this stage of the year and SARS has already got all of those taxes in their bank account ready to be applied to the budget, or already has been spent in many instances. You do this investment, and what happens is that your income, let's say you've got R1 million income and it's going to be, you're going to have 400,000 in taxes. You apply your certificate, and what happens is your income is R1 million minus the R1 million that you make through the Section 12J investment, which means that your income is zero for income tax purposes for that year, and that 400,000 rand comes back to you. So effectively, your R1 million investment has actually only cost 600,000. Because SARS actually effectively kicks in 400,000. And I know frequently people say, but when do you have to pay it? When do you have to pay it? And you don't. It's a permanent transfer of your taxes back to you. And this is where sometimes the short circuit ups, in one's mind happens. We say, how is that possible? And it's possible through the legislation. If anybody's in doubt, you can go to the SARS website and it's there. All right, it's been in existence already for 11 years. And we are now obviously promoting this for that. But what we find is that to access this investment, people have to come up with that investment amount. 1 million, either people don't have it or they don't want it. So what we've got is a mechanism where through Impact Cash Management Fund, we can actually loan R1 million. Okay, and that R1 million loan, right, gets applied into Impact Empowerment Ventures, which is the SARS registered Section 12J venture capital company, which we call just shortened for VCC. And so you've got two contracts. One is a loan contract by a third-party provider, and you've got an investment contract with the actual Section 12J VCC. That investment contract, that investment that's been made, means that you can go to SARS and get the deduction, right, to get your taxes back. And those taxes that you get back then has to go down to pay down that loan. So and that's basically where what's happened. We then at Impact Cash Management Fund says, well, we've advanced you a loan, right? How do we protect from the loan point of view? All right, and SARS says you've got to have a loan that you're fully exposed to. And so we said, we need, firstly, you to seed your tax refund for this to work. You have to also seed your investment certificate. Your R1 million investment certificate is seeded to against the loan. And then also to strengthen compliance, we require a securing deposit of 25,000 Rand. So that's the only money that comes out of the investor's pocket. The rest is the loan. And the 25,000 Rand does not form part of the investment. It's part of the collateral. And we have two bits of collateral that we've got. It's firstly the investment certificate and the 25,000. And that then is against a loan effectively of about 600,000 that we've made. And then at this point, and this is exactly the position that we've got the 25,000 Rand securing deposit and the 1 million Rand share certificate asset that then is collateral against the loan account, which is effectively 600,000 debt, 400,000 cash. And that 400,000 you would have got from your tax refund. If you don't do this investment, you don't get 400,000 back from SARS. It stays with SARS. And that's an important criteria. The loan we actually write as a zero interest rate loan. And the reason we write it as a zero interest rate loan is at this point, we're not really drawing the loan down. Okay, we're not applying it in any risk capacity, right? And so we leave it at that. What then happens, we then pass this onto the qualifying investment and we refinance the loan on the qualifying investment, which means that the qualifying investment effectively takes responsibility for the loan. Any interest that's needed to be paid, any servicing requirement is dealt with by the qualifying investment, right? Which means that if we are shifting the risk away from the investor, right? Which means the investor has the upside on the returns that they could make on the capital that they've provided, and that capital that they've provided is their tax money, right? And we are then able to try and generate a return on that. And so what we're trying to do for the investor, which is the next slide, is to actually, what's happened is the investors provided 400,000 in cash, and we're trying to actually generate a return to that. So the whole picture, next slide. The whole picture is effectively we make a loan, and Yeah, this is what we're trying to do for the investor. And we are actually trying to generate a return for the investor over the 5 years, because you have to be invested for 5 years. So for the investor, the money goes in the first year and out after the anniversary of the 5th year, which is effectively the 6th year of investment. You get the 25,000 back, and you get a return on the actual tax refund that came back. And you keep it. It is yours. After 5 years, if you withdraw your investment, you'll pay capital gains on whatever you receive. All right. But the return really depends on the kind of, it's dependent on the underlying investment that is made. And it differs. For things like student accommodation, it might be 8 to 10%, but if the project fails, you've still got the hard asset behind it as salvage, for the actual capital amount. If it's a farming operation, maybe 10 to 12% could be reasonably expected. If it's manufacturing or retailing, maybe 15%. This is not a hard and fast rule, but it's the kind of returns that we would want to expect. And so this is a way that people can participate, right, in the economy by investing in the economy, using their taxes, supporting entrepreneurs, and generating considerable upside potential for the actual investor. And so the problem is with 12J is that coming up with the investment amount has always been an obstacle, a barrier to entry. And then, of course, the underlying risk is the other barrier to entry for investors, which is why they're reluctant to enter the space. What we've done is try and deal with both of those problems and actually give the investor the possibility of investing with upside potential, with a downside control. So the maximum downside we're trying to achieve is the 25,000 Rand. So what happens is that if you don't invest, the money goes to SARS and stays with SARS. If you do invest, right, and the thing fails but completely with no salvage at all, we're trying to keep you in a position that you're in no worse position than if you just did nothing and just paid your taxes. And that's an important part. So from the point of view of the actual business, all right, and from a point of view of the business, we've got the business to raise capital for businesses, and it's actually quite nice from that point of view, is that from the business point of view, we can do almost any sector, almost any business, as long as it's less than 50 million Rand. So it's aimed at small businesses looking to raise capital. We can raise capital for startups. We can raise capital to recapitalize a business. We can raise capital to grow a business. All of these things are actually possible. From the business point of view, you don't need a credit check. You don't need collateral. You don't even need a track record. You just need to convince the people around you who are paying taxes to support your venture with your taxes. All right. We've got very, very nice, real experiences of people who actually didn't know where to turn. Where do you get capital to actually achieve their dreams, where we actually have been able to raise the capital through this mechanism to actually improve it. And this goes to all parts of the country we are able to actually service. It's not a problem. And so our model is you can bring your own business, but you also bring your own investors. In other words, you know how to promote your own business. We now are creating investors that didn't know that could be investors. In other words, taxpayers, people earning salaries, living paycheck to paycheck, but paying tax, right, are now able to participate as investors and support the entrepreneurs and small businesses. This is effectively squarely in what we call the spirit and the letter of the law, right, of Section 12J, where we can actually support companies, again, across sectors. The only places that are not allowed are, SARS has a very, very specific list of businesses that they don't allow. It's things like alcohol, tobacco, gambling, arms and ammunition, etc. So that's basically what, where we are as far as that is concerned. Thank you very much from my side. The next steps to do is please don't delay. One of the things about 12J is to actually claim your taxes. You must make the investment in the tax year that you're claiming. So for instance, if you want to claim your taxes for an investment for the current tax year, you have to be invested before the 28th of February. In other words, the end of the tax year is the 28th of February, which is why 12J becomes so frenetic in February. If you invest in March, then this year's taxes are gone forever, right? You can only then commit next year's taxes for that. So we appeal to everybody, sign the commitment to invest and get the security deposit in place. If you don't have 25,000, let's get something, let's get 5,000 in, just so that we can actually prove to SARS that the investment took place before the 28th of February. That's important. If you get cold feet, we can always cancel in retrospect. We cannot invest in retrospect, and that's what we'd appeal to everybody. From there, we do the required documentation, and that we can do in March. That's not serious, as long as we've got the actual securing deposit in place to prove that the actual investment took place previously. We can do it for individuals from 1 million to 2.5 million is possible. If you've got more than that in income, we can only shield about 2.5 million of income from tax with the 12J. We can do it for trusts. We can also do it for taxpayers. If you don't have R1 million income, if it's less than that, we can put you in partnerships to put joint incomes over R1 million, so you still can participate. We can do it as a staff benefit for companies that do wish to actually get their staff investing in the economy, which also then improves the actual financial health of those staff over the long term. And we really do appeal that you do take action, right, and do so. We would appeal today even. We will send you the commitment to the invest form so that you can actually secure your investment. Thank you very much. I see there is a question.
Chris? Yes. Before we just proceed, I'd like to just give you the good news, Mr. Hart. Zoom has said to us we may carry on. So we don't have to have that comfort break right now. We can go straight into the questions.
Yes.
If you're happy to do that, we can certainly go ahead and do that.
All right. And I see Sinette Ruiz asked, is it only income tax? Can you use capital gains tax? So the answer is yes, because capital gains tax is part of your income tax. So what happens if you've got a capital gain, the tax authorities will in fact push that and put that onto the added to your income. And so you can most certainly use your capital gains tax and apply that to an investment. So that is one way to actually preserve your wealth, as it were.
Chris, and dividend tax?
Dividend tax, no. All right, because that's already taken off at source. Well, I'm not aware that you can use dividend taxes. But otherwise, anything that is subject to the income tax tax table, right? In the case of a company, it's a straightforward 28%. Ja, kan in Afrikaans vra? Ja.
Ja, Bekus, jy is welkom om in Afrikaans te vra. Jy moet net unmute. En nou het ek nie die mooi Afrikaanse woord daarvoor nie.
Kan jy my nou hoor?
Daar is hy.
Ja, dat so.
As hy, Chris, ek is nie in die ding, so dalk 'n dom vraag, maar verskoon my maar. Ek boer, sê by is my bruto inkomste 10 miljoen rand is en al my aftrekbare uitgawes word nou afgetrek. Daar bly 1 miljoen rand wins oor waarop ek belasting betaal en sê ek moet nou 400 000 rand belasting betaal. En julle 12J sertifikaat, word dit beskou as uitgawe wat afgetrek word by 10 miljoen inkomste of is dit fisies vir my belasting wat ek betaal?
Ja, dit is iets wat jy kan aftrek, maar die geld wat jy behoort belasting te betaal, moet jy aan die belegging oorgee. So as jy soveel 2 miljoen belasting moet betaal en ons gebruik 1 miljoen in die section 12J belegging, moet jy die 1 miljoen na die 12J belegging en die ander miljoen moet jy na SARS toe oorgee. So jy sal vir cash flow sal jy 2 miljoen nog steeds moet jy uitbetaal, maar jy weet 1 miljoen nou is in 'n belegging wat in 5 jaar sal terugkom, miskien met ook 'n return. So dit behoort weer om jy aan te kom en dit is en hopelik as dit 5 jaar as jy nie 'n lekker jaar het, miskien kan daardie belegging inkom en 'n lekkerder jaar. Ek weet.
Okay, Chris, let me save you now, Chris. Bly stil asseblief. Wessel, mag ek vir jou 'n paar vrae vra asseblief?
You're welcome. But perhaps before you ask the question, just to answer Bekus as well. Yeah. In other words, Bekus, if you've got R1 million of profit, of R1 million se wins, en dit is in 'n maatskappy, dan moet jy 28% belasting daar betaal en jy kan daai volle 28% dus terugeis. As dit in jou persoonlike hoedanigheid is 10/45% of 40% en jy kan die volle 45% terugeis op daai 1 miljoen. Ek dink maar dit hang af of die 10 miljoen in jou persoon inkomste is. Ek dink as ek jou reg verstaan, is dit 'n regspersoon, nie jou persoonlike inkomste nie. Maar jy's welkom om my te skakel na die tyd. Okay, Dave, you wanted to ask a few questions.
Yes, please. We're partnering with you initially in a farm in the Eastern Free State and near Roosendaal. Won't you tell us a little bit about that, please?
I would love to tell it. And by the way, I don't have any farm. I'm like you. I'm not a farmer. But I truly believe in the cause. And one of the farmers, I explained 12J to him. And he was so excited that he said, but this is an opportunity to really achieve what we want to achieve. In other words, develop income, develop opportunities, develop jobs. And that's what we're looking at. So there's actually quite a number of projects that are already in line. There's people talking about cannabis. There's people talking about the white gold at present is ginger. There's people that's doing rabbits. So there's quite a number of opportunities that one can look at. And that's why we talk about factory farming, because the other thing that we feel very strongly about is that it should not just be the production of products, but also adding value to those products. If I can give a good example, GrowSA, the Rabbit Association of South Africa, who's an association of all the rabbit farmers, they own or they invested into the abattoir. And the abattoir then takes all the produce that they can produce rework it and send it to markets in overseas. So those are examples of things. So it would be wonderful if a group of farmers get together and they set up a cheese factory, or all other kinds of factories that we're looking at. So the open share class is really to work on all these. The other, there's at present a number of initiatives. There's one in the Eastern Free State, one in the Lowveld, one in the Winelands. And I think that's also important for investors, because you're not invested in one region only and exposed to one industry only, but it's diversified factory farming throughout South Africa. I don't know if that answers you, Dave.
Yes, it certainly does. Thank you very much for that.
But it's very exciting. And I think, you know, what I like about 12J, if I can share with the people, is this is really an opportunity to invest in businesses that have been doing exceptionally well, but because of COVID, they have to close down. We can use this money to recapitalize them. We can revive a credible restaurant. We can develop things like new opportunities, new products, new produce. I'm so excited. GrowSA is purely a platform, and everything we do in partnership. So we partner with Impact Investment Africa for the 12J, and so we have many other partners. For 50C, we partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, for instance. But one of our other partners, or our partners, are the universities. And yesterday I had a meeting with the University of Pretoria's Department of Agricultural Economics. And they, part and parcel of this, they said to me, you bring us all the ideas and we will investigate and support you with the business planning, making sure that we get a maximum return. And that's what we want to achieve. And then obviously it's nice for someone like me that's not a farmer to invest in a farm and support probably the sector in South Africa with the greatest potential for job creation and wealth creation. I think we've got huge opportunities in Africa and in South Africa to make a difference in agriculture.
Yes, Wessel, I fully agree with you on that. Chris, is there anything that you would like to leave us with? If there are no more questions.
I just asked a question on the chat.
Yes.
That everyone just forward me their contact details, and we will most definitely send you a link to the recording, as well as copies of the commitment forms. You will notice someone asked me yesterday, but they're all the same. And I said, no, they look the same, but one is for companies, one are for individuals, and one is for the partnerships. So just check. If you want to enter as a partnership, there's another form. If you want to enter as a company, there's another form. And if there's, but the first page all look the same. So just make sure that you've got the right one. And then the last one, we will also send you a copy of the presentation, as well as a copy of a presentation on GrowSA, which we didn't do today. Chris, there's one more question. Is the tax investment a once-off thing? How often does SARS allow this?
Okay, yes, I think that's a good question. Section 12J is per tax year. So you're allowed to invest in every single tax year where you've got taxable income. So Section 12J has been going for 11 years. There's a sunset clause on 30th of June. In other words, we don't know whether the government's going to extend it or not, but certainly this tax year and next tax year is in fact possible. And so we would appeal to people who are committing for this tax year to also commit next tax year. So you can do a 2.5 million rand investment in your individual capacity for this tax year and also next tax year. The same goes for your companies, etc. For every single tax year, it is, and everyone is a new investment, and you can invest in different things per tax year. It's as you like, or the same thing if you like, if it's still open. So yeah, we would appeal that firstly, if you do know people who are able to, the economy is in distress. This is one way we can, in our own sphere, all right, make a difference in the economy at very little cost to ourselves, right? And that's the main thing, is that we can effectively achieve SARS's purpose more effectively than SARS can achieve its own purpose. And we know that because of difficulties in things like service delivery and the needs. And I think that this is the point, is that we can create what I call as a virtuous circle in the economy by creating and supporting small businesses and helping to actually generate wealth for ourselves, but also wealth for our fellow South Africans by creating jobs and ownership opportunities, for entrepreneurs as well.
Mark, your question, yeah, I see that it was just clarified, but just to explain to you, if you do your deposit before the 28th of February and you complete the form, the rest of the paperwork can be done afterwards, and you can even decide to get cold feet and get out, and the money will be repaid to you. But get the deposit done and get the form completed. Even if there's mistakes on the form, that can still be rectified afterwards. But we need to have proof of an investment before the 28th of February so that you can qualify for your total tax benefit up to 2.5 million for a income for an individual and 5 million for a company. Chris, I'm learning, eh?
Yes, very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I ask? It's Mark McClure speaking.
Yes,
Morning, Chris. Morning, Dave, and the rest of the team. And hi, Sinead. I see you there. A couple of parties are asking the relationship between a 12J, which they fully understand from a tax benefit, but how that it can be used to assist on their BE ratings in terms of structuring opportunities into new companies. Is that something that Impact has embraced and taken on as part of a role? So they're looking how they can allocate funding to the 12J, but then looking at how it can help and assist with their BE ratings and for suppliers.
Yes, so Mark, that's actually a very good question. The 12J, what I've just done is a fairly generic application of how we can actually deliver the 12J benefit to the investor. For most times when one's looking for a return on investment, one speaks about it in financial terms. So in other words, I put in 100 Rand and we can achieve, let's say, 10% a year, which means in 5 years' time, it's about 150%. In other words, you should be able to get about 150 Rand per 100 Rand that you invest. And that's a financial return. But we could, for instance, in something like solar panels, instead of that you purchase it, your solar panels effectively through 12J. It's got to be structured properly, for compliance purposes. But at the end of it, instead of giving you a financial return, you actually get solar panels on your roof as a return.
Okay.
And we can do the same thing for BE points. Again, it's got to be working with companies, BE rating agencies, etc. But BE obligations to get them is usually from after-tax income that you've got to actually spend, and that we can actually use 12J to actually get a lot of the BE benefits for that. Let's say ESD, for instance. So that is possible, but it's a more how can you say, bespoke and focused approach to actually generate a benefit.
Okay, that's great, Chris. I think so. Effectively, what you're saying is split the split the discussion into two parts. One is a straight financial application for the 12J that can be achieved. The second is to then wear a different hat and perhaps suggest a project that comes back to impact as a project that could be then shaped thereafter. And that would be a different discussion, but it is something that is both possible, and secondly, it's something that, if I can express it, I think it's the way I've seen that impact is genuinely looking to actually assist grow businesses as opposed to just sticking in the financial space. And the reason I'm raising it is that the party that I'm in discussion who we want to conclude a 12J with, they've been looking at another 12J service provider, and he prefers what I've been expressing that we are working on, which is a genuine use of the tool, shall we say, and the opportunity to grow businesses. So he's quite happy to put on hold the discussion he's having with the other party. And really what I've seen this over the last 10 years as 12J's evolved, that some parties are purely accountant orientated, take the tax benefit, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's his whole purpose. But thank you, you've clarified that. So I would then separate the two projects and then present it back as a project that would then be submitted for consideration. That the empowered project, is that right?
Yes, very much. That is something that could. So from the company's point of view, it may well end up that the company uses their 12J. Let's say they use the full 5 million. It's 1.4 million rand in cash, and they use that 1.4 million rand as ESD spend. In other words, they won't get anything back necessarily, but that ESD spend, then their return on investment will come in the form of scorecard benefits to the company.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mark. That was a really good question. And yes, what you're saying there is so true. We in business, not just for the financial merit. If you had a look at that lens through which we choose and select our qualifying partners, certainly the impact, the positive outflow through socio-economic growth in the area in which we invest is crucial. Hence our focus on the agricultural sector in particular. Wessel, perhaps a final word from you before we go and enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, just to link up with Mark, I was meeting with quite a big company during this week, and they really see the opportunity to invest in potential suppliers as well as agents for their company, and making it possible through 12J to empower them to be able to run their own businesses as well. And that fits in with the BEE as well. So that's very important. Yeah, I think, as I said, as GrowSA, we've got a wonderful conference webinar, a free webinar on the 25th. So I will also send you an invite to that. It is with World Class Summits. We've got Dr. Tabi Lioka. She was a Economist of the Year 2017, and as well as Muletsi Mbeki, a well-known author and political analyst, to give their insights after the budget speech on the 24th, Pule. So I think you will enjoy it. We'll be on the 25th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I really think it's a great opportunity for everyone to participate and to find out what are the opportunities and the challenges lying ahead for businesses in South Africa going forward. And Dave, thanks for hosting us and allowing us to invite people to participate in 12J.
No, you are most welcome, Wessel. This is why we wake up every morning, inspired for talking to real people on the ground and SMEs that need funding. Chris, I think final word from you, young man, before we all enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Again, I don't really have anything to add other than, it's one of the things that we want people to participate in, not just for selfish reasons. In other words, there's personal gains that one can actually make, but it actually does make a difference. We have to actually also consider our broader society, the distress that it's in at the moment, and that we actually ourselves can make a difference, right? And we really do appeal for people to actually commit, but also bring other people that they know so that they can also commit. And let's see if we can generate, a good level of growth and job creation, etc., going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's all from